Let's take a look at the finished product of a process that I'm going to show you how to do. This is a little trough garden that my daughter Sherry made approximately a year ago and has sat out in the weather and has come through the winter. Her thyme has survived well and she has some sedums and things growing in it. This is a really neat little container that you can make in your garden, far cheaper than those that you can buy in garden centers. Before me, I have the formula. You have equal portions of sand and Portland cement. You have 2 portions of peat moss. No matter the size of your portion, you must do that 2 parts of peat moss, do 1 part of Portland cement and 1 part sand. And I've discovered in trying to put water in, I began with about half of a portion of water, but typically it will take almost a full portion of water to make it to the consistency that you want it to be able to get it to pack into whatever you choose for the container. If you'll look at it, it looks a whole lot like what we used to play with as a mud pie. And if you see that it's weeping water from it, it might be just a little bit too damp, so you might want to add a little bit more of the Portland cement to it. One word of caution, when you are working with that dry Portland cement, please wear a face mask because you do not want to inhale really the peat moss or the Portland cement. It is very caustic and you don't want it in your lungs. Okay, let me just show you the one container I'd like to begin to pack in with this peat moss and sand and Portland cement mixture. I like to start in the bottom first because I think by getting the thickness of that worked in, you see it just packs in. I'm using this is what would be a paper mache floral basket that you can discard. Typically in some containers you want to line them with black plastic, and I'll show you one done with that technique in just a second. Now let's pack in a little more. It's important to have that bottom part thick enough so that it'll support your sides. I can see the rocks in there from the sand. You see those down in there? They create texture. Okay, let's start with the sides now. And I really do like to go around with a small portion first, get it all in and where it'll hold together, and then go back and finish filling in and pushing in the sides and making sure you really want to push really hard against the sides of the container so that you know you're not leaving air pockets or things like that. Now see, this one's going to start coming off from the side, so I don't want to roll it too much now. I already see that could be a problem. And you know, if you don't get it right the first time, you don't have a very large investment here, and don't let it discourage you, because I'll assure you that the first time you do something, sometimes it may not come out perfect for us. You can start all over again for just pennies, actually. But anyway, when you've got this water in this solution, this is a project that you might want to share with your children once you get it to the mud consistency, and let them choose a container that they'd like to work with you in it. Now see, this is in here now, pretty much. It's not coming loose from the sides. You want to let this harden for a minimum of 24 hours and no more than 48. Now then, what you'd want to do is take your fingers and push this down. You don't want to leave it too uneven. Then the last thing you'd want to do, and I can see that I'm not perfect with what I've done here, but this is just a quick rendition of how you do it when you were doing it alone. I'm going to take my precise. You could even insert a piece of pipe or plastic, but you know it's very important that we put our drainage holes in the bottom of our containers. So this is just a stick from the yard. But once you take it out of the container, you can just completely, if it's not all the way through, it will before it hardens up, you can poke it through from the other side. Another thing with a container like this, you can just tear the sides off if it didn't want to turn loose on its own. Let's look at this one right here that I constructed 2 days ago. It's ready to come out of this mold. And you see this one I did line with the plastic. It's going to be very simple to get it out. I'll just lift this plastic up Pardon me if it's making a little bit of noise. Okay, I'm going to just lift it up and sit it over here on the top of this wet mud over here. Okay, let's unwrap it. Now then, take a look at what happened on the sides. See where the plastic was pushed in along the sides of that metal container and how it gave little smile lines and facial features to the sides of this pot. You'll see on the side there, I did take some rocks that I probably picked up alongside of a stream somewhere and stuffed them in there when it was in this wet consistency. Now, one of the finishing things that you might want to do with it, I have you need a wire brush. And while it's still semi-soft, you can, go through and take off the rough edges, or if you want to leave it rough, smooth out the sides. If you want to do anything to the sides, you can also do that. But basically, this one is finished. Now, I would not plant in it until it's hardened off at least for a week. If you wanted to, you could even paint buttermilk on it, and it will make it grow moss or do some interesting things on it. Right here, I have a few other samples of what I think could be used for containers. Naturally, you'd want to line all of these with the plastic, but you see I have 3 different sizes of the same shapes, and all of these would work very well. Now, the proportion that I did use in here was 2 quarts to make the one that I have here and the one that I have here. So actually there were 4 quarts of dried materials that made this. So this gives you an idea of the size container and how much you might want to mix up. It doesn't hold over well, and you do need to use it as soon as you've made it. But these are just a few examples of shapes and sizes. So really it's sort of like when you choose flowers and containers for the garden. Look at this old loaf pan. It probably won't ever be used again for a loaf of bread, but how about this basket? This, I think, would be a very interesting shape. And I know that with plastic in it, the planter itself will come out when it's finished. So you see, for just pennies, you can put together a container that will last and give interest in your garden. This is really a fun project, and I don't want you to be intimidated by the word cement or concrete, because they are not heavy. They do have the peat moss in them. But just be creative and realize that they're lightweight. You can pick them up and move them where you want to go.